David Walker sits frozen in his leather office chair, staring at the small velvet box in his trembling hands. The billionaire's face has gone completely white as he opens it to reveal an empty space where a delicate silver pendant once lay. The same pendant he saw around a waitress's neck just hours ago. The pendant that belonged to his sister who vanished from his life 25 years ago after their parents' bitter divorce. His sister whose name was Rose, but who called herself Emma when she wanted to hide from the world. Emma Carter, the waitress he dismissed so coldly at lunch, never looking closely at her face, never recognizing the eyes that once looked up to him with complete trust and love. He reaches for his phone with shaking fingers, calling his assistant. "Find Emma Carter," he whispers, his voice breaking. "Find her now, and cancel everything on my schedule. The pendant changes everything." The woman he treated like nothing might be the sister he spent decades trying to find. Before we continue, tell me where you're listening from and tap subscribe so you never miss a story. At 52, David Walker commands a business empire worth $3 billion. His name opens doors. His approval launches careers. His displeasure ends them. He moves through the world with the absolute confidence that comes from never having to worry about money, status, or security. His office occupies the top floor of the Walker Tower downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the entire city spread out below him like a personal kingdom. Every detail is perfection: imported Italian leather, museum-quality art, furniture that costs more than most people earn in a year. David built this empire from the inheritance his father left him, multiplying it through calculated risks and ruthless business decisions. He's never married, claims he's too busy for relationships, but the truth runs deeper. He spent 25 years looking for someone who disappeared from his life when he needed her most. 15 blocks away, Emma Carter waits tables at Sullivan's Diner, a modest restaurant that serves working-class families and downtown office workers looking for affordable meals. At 47, she moves with quiet efficiency between tables, remembering orders without writing them down, anticipating needs before customers voice them. Emma wears her brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and her uniform pressed, despite its obvious age. Around her neck hangs a small silver pendant, a heart-shaped locket that catches the light when she moves. She touches it unconsciously throughout her shifts, a nervous habit she's never been able to break. She's worked at Sullivan's for 3 years, ever since the accounting firm where she'd been a bookkeeper downsized and eliminated her position. The restaurant work pays less than half what she used to earn, but it keeps her small apartment and puts food on her table. She's grateful for steady work, even when customers treat her like she's invisible. Emma has learned to read people quickly in this job. The ones who'll tip well, the ones who'll complain about everything, the ones who see her as a person versus those who see her as just another service worker. Most fall into the latter category, especially the wealthy businessmen who eat lunch downtown. When David Walker enters Sullivan's Diner on a Tuesday afternoon, Emma recognizes the type immediately. Expensive suit, impatient expression, checking his phone while scanning the room like he's doing the establishment a favor by being there. His assistant called ahead to reserve the corner booth, though Sullivan's doesn't usually take reservations. The manager made an exception because Walker Industries is the kind of name that commands respect, even in a place like this. Emma approaches his table with practiced professionalism, notepad ready, prepared for the kind of interaction she's had thousands of times before. "Good afternoon," she says politely. "Can I start you with something to drink?" David doesn't look up from his phone. "Coffee, black, and I need to order quickly. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. "Of course," Emma replies, already writing. "What would you like to eat?" "Whatever's fastest. A sandwich. I don't care what kind." His tone suggests this entire interaction is beneath his attention. Emma nods and heads to the kitchen, placing his order with the cook. She pours his coffee, sets it on a tray with cream and sugar just in case, and returns to his table. As she leans forward to set down the coffee cup, the small silver pendant slips forward from her neckline, catching the afternoon light streaming through the window. David glances up at that exact moment, irritated by how long the coffee is taking, ready to complain about the service. Instead, his eyes lock onto the pendant dangling inches from his face. The world stops. His phone slips from his suddenly nerveless fingers, clattering onto the table. The coffee cup rattles against its saucer as Emma sets it down, but David doesn't hear the sound. All of his attention is focused on the small silver heart hanging from a delicate chain around this waitress's neck. He knows that pendant. He bought it 26 years ago for a 13-year-old girl who called him her hero. He had it engraved on the back with words only 2 people in the world would recognize. For Rose, my brave little sister, love always, D. Emma notices his staring and self-consciously tucks the pendant back inside her uniform. Is everything all right, sir? David stares at her face for the first time, really looks at her instead of dismissing her as part of the background. The eyes are older now, marked by years of struggle and disappointment. The face is thinner, more careful, shaped by experiences he can only imagine. But underneath the changes, underneath the uniform and the tired expression, he sees something that makes his heart stop. He sees his sister.
Where did you get that necklace? David's voice comes out rougher than he intended, startling both of them. Emma's hand moves instinctively to her throat, covering the pendant, even though it's now hidden beneath her uniform. It was a gift, she says carefully. A long time ago. From who? David presses, leaning forward with an intensity that makes Emma step back slightly. I'm sorry, but that's personal. Would you like cream with your coffee? David feels like he's drowning in possibilities and fears. This could be Rose. This could be his sister, standing 3 feet away from him, and she doesn't recognize him. Or maybe she does recognize him and wants nothing to do with the brother who let their parents tear their family apart. I need to ask you something, David says, his usual commanding tone replaced by something almost pleading. Is your real name Emma? Emma stares at him for a long moment, her expression shifting from polite confusion to something more guarded. Why would you ask me that? Because I'm looking for someone very important to me, someone who disappeared a long time ago. I think you have me confused with someone else, Emma says, but there's something in her voice now, a tremor that suggests David's questions are hitting closer to home than she wants to admit. David stands up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor loud enough to draw attention from other diners. He's taller than Emma remembered, broader, but his eyes are the same intense blue she remembers from childhood. Rose, David whispers, the name barely audible. Emma's face goes completely white. She takes another step back, her hand gripping the edge of the table for support. 25 years of careful distance, of building a new identity, of protecting herself from the pain of her past, all threatened by one whispered name. I don't know what you're talking about, she says, but the words sound hollow even to her. Rose Walker, David continues, his voice growing stronger with certainty. Born October 15th, 1976, favorite color was purple, used to collect stuffed elephants, called me Davy until she was 12 because she said David was too grown up for her big brother. Each detail hits Emma like a physical blow. These aren't things a stranger could know. These are memories from a life she spent decades trying to forget, trying to move past. Stop, Emma whispers, tears beginning to form in her eyes. You loved strawberry ice cream, but hated strawberry candy. You were afraid of thunderstorms, but never wanted anyone to know because you thought it made you look weak. You used to sneak into my room during storms and sleep on the floor next to my bed. Stop, Emma whispers. The pendant was my Christmas gift to you when you were 13. I had it engraved on the back. For Rose, my brave little sister. Love always, D. Emma's composure finally breaks. She fumbles with the chain around her neck, pulling the pendant out and flipping it over with shaking fingers. There, worn smooth by years of nervous touching, are the exact words David just recited. The diner has gone quiet around them. Other customers sense the drama unfolding, but can't understand what they're witnessing. Emma looks up at David, and for just a moment, he sees past the careful walls she's built around herself. He sees the little sister who used to think he could fix anything, who trusted him completely, who looked at him like he was the strongest person in the world. Then the walls slam back up, harder than before. "That doesn't matter now," Emma says, quietly, her voice steady again, but cold. "That was a different life, a different person." She sets his coffee cup down more firmly than necessary and turns to walk away. "Rose, please!" David starts. "My name is Emma," she says without turning around. "Emma Carter, and I have other tables to serve." She walks away, leaving David standing beside his untouched coffee, finally understanding that finding his sister and getting her back are two completely different things.
David sits back down heavily, his mind reeling from the confirmation of what he'd hardly dared hope. Rose is alive. She's been 15 blocks away from his office for 3 years, and he never knew. She's been struggling, working jobs that pay barely enough to survive, while he's been living in luxury, searching for her through private investigators and old contacts. He pulls out his phone and cancels his afternoon meetings with a series of terse text messages. Nothing else matters right now except the woman moving between tables across the room, the sister who clearly wants nothing to do with him. Emma serves her other customers with mechanical efficiency, but David can see the tension in her shoulders, the way she avoids looking in his direction. Her careful composure is costing her something, and he recognizes the signs because he spent his entire adult life maintaining his own emotional walls. When she finally returns with her sandwich 20 minutes later, her professional mask is firmly in place. "Will there be anything else?" she asks, setting the plate down without meeting his eyes. "We need to talk," David says quietly. "Really talk. Not here, but somewhere private." "No, we don't," Emma replies calmly. "We needed to talk 25 years ago. We don't need to talk now." The words hit David like a physical blow, because they're completely justified. He had let their parents' bitter divorce tear them apart. He had been 18, legally an adult, and he had chosen sides instead of fighting for his 13-year-old sister. "I looked for you," he says desperately. "After I turned 21, I hired investigators. I've been looking for you for decades." Emma's laugh is bitter and quiet. "You looked for Rose Walker. I stopped being Rose Walker the day I turned 18 and could legally change my name." "Why?" The question comes out raw with pain. "Why did you disappear so completely?" Emma glances around the diner, aware that their conversation is drawing attention from staff and customers. She leans down slightly, her voice low but fierce. "Because you abandoned me. When Mom and Dad got divorced, when they were using us as weapons against each other, when I needed my big brother most, you chose Dad's money over protecting me." David feels like he's been punched in the chest. "That's not... I was 18. I didn't understand." "You understood perfectly," Emma cuts him off. "Dad offered to pay for your college, your business school, your startup capital. All you had to do was stay on his side of the custody battle. And you did. I thought it would be better for you with Mom. Mom was drinking herself to death and dating men who saw a teenage girl as an opportunity," Emma says bluntly. "You knew that. Everyone knew that. But it was convenient for you to pretend otherwise." The truth of her words destroys every justification David has built over the years. He had known his mother was struggling. He had known the men she brought around were questionable. But his father's offer had been so generous, so perfect for launching his career, and it had been easier to convince himself that Rose would be fine. "I was a kid too," he says quietly. "You were my big brother," Emma replies, her voice breaking slightly despite her efforts to stay composed. "You were supposed to protect me. Instead, you let them split us up, and you never once tried to contact me after the divorce was final. I want to argue, want to explain about the legal restrictions, the custody agreement that prevented contact, his father's threats to cut off his funding if he maintained a relationship with his mother's family. But all of those excuses sound hollow now, faced with the reality of what his choices cost." "I'm sorry," he whispers.
Rose, I'm so sorry. My name is Emma, she repeats firmly. And sorry doesn't undo 25 years of silence. She straightens up, pulling her professional mask back into place. Your sandwich is $12. Will you be paying cash or credit? The dismissal is complete and devastating. David pulls out his wallet with numb fingers, leaving a $100 bill on the table. Emma stares at the money for a moment, then picks it up and walks to the register. She returns with his change, $88, and sets it on the table with precision. I don't need your guilt money, she says quietly. I need you to finish your meal and leave me alone. David understands that this is his dismissal, not just from the restaurant, but from any hope of rebuilding what they once had. He stands slowly, leaving the money on the table despite her rejection of it. If you ever want to talk, he begins. I won't, Emma interrupts. This conversation is 25 years too late, and I've built a life that doesn't include the Walker family. She walks away for the final time, disappearing into the kitchen, leaving David standing alone beside a table full of untouched food and the weight of choices that can never be undone.
David drives back to his office in a daze, the brief interaction replaying in his mind like a punishment he can't escape. Every word Emma spoke was accurate. Every accusation she made was deserved. He had abandoned his little sister when she needed him most, and 25 years of success couldn't change that fundamental betrayal. His assistant, Margaret Green, notices his distracted state immediately when he returns to the office. Sir, the Henderson meeting is in an hour. Do you want me to review the contracts? David walks to his office window, staring down at the city below. Somewhere in those streets is his sister, finishing her shift at a diner that pays her barely enough to survive, while he owns buildings worth more than some countries' budgets. Cancel the Henderson meeting, he says quietly. Cancel everything for the rest of the week. Margaret looks shocked. David Walker never cancels meetings, never disrupts his carefully planned schedule. Sir, is everything all right? David doesn't answer. He's thinking about a 13-year-old girl who used to sneak into his room during thunderstorms, who called him her hero, who trusted him completely. He's thinking about the choices he made and the price she paid for them. That evening, David sits in his penthouse apartment, surrounded by luxury that feels meaningless. He opens his laptop and searches for Emma Carter online, finding very little. No social media presence, no public records beyond basic employment verification. She's built a life designed for invisibility, and he understands why. He drafts a dozen emails, deletes them all. He considers sending flowers, gifts, anything that might open a door for conversation, but Emma's rejection had been complete and final. She doesn't want his money or his apologies or his presence in her life. The next day, David drives past Sullivan's diner twice, but doesn't go inside. He parks across the street and watches through the windows as Emma serves customers with the same quiet efficiency he witnessed yesterday. She looks tired, older than her years, marked by struggles he could have prevented if he'd been the brother she deserved. His phone rings constantly, business calls, meetings that need rescheduling, deals that require his attention. David ignores them all. His empire can survive without him for a few days while he processes the destruction of every assumption he's held about himself for decades. On the third day, Margaret appears in his office doorway looking concerned. Mr. Walker, I've been fielding calls all morning. The Henderson deal is falling apart without your input, and the Tokyo investors are threatening to pull out if you don't respond to their proposal. David looks up from his desk, where he's been staring at a photograph from his childhood, the last picture taken of him and Rose together, at a family Christmas party 2 months before their parents announced their divorce. Do you have siblings, Margaret? He asks. The question surprises her. Yes, sir, a younger brother. Are you close? Very close. We talk every day. David nods slowly. I had a sister once. I let my parents' selfishness tear us apart, and I convinced myself it was the right thing to do. Yesterday, I found her serving tables at a diner 15 blocks from here. Margaret's expression shifts from confusion to sympathy.
"Oh, Mr. Walker, that must have been wonderful." "She hates me," David says simply, "and she has every right to." He looks back at the photograph, at Rose's gap-toothed smile and complete faith in her big brother's ability to handle anything. "I need you to do something for me. I need you to find out everything you can about Emma Carter, not to invade her privacy, but to understand what her life has been like, what she's been through, what she needs." Margaret nods, sensing that this request carries more weight than any business deal. "Of course, sir. And Margaret, be discreet. She's made it clear she wants nothing to do with me, and I need to respect that. But I also need to understand what I destroyed when I chose my father's money over my sister's welfare." After Margaret leaves, David sits alone with his guilt and his regrets, finally understanding that some mistakes create consequences that echo through decades, shaping lives in ways that can never be fully undone. Margaret's research takes 2 weeks, and when she presents David with Emma's file, he feels like he's reading about a stranger who happens to share his sister's DNA. After the divorce, Emma had indeed struggled with their mother's drinking and unstable relationships. At 16, she'd moved in with their maternal grandmother, working part-time jobs to help with expenses. She'd graduated high school with honors despite everything, earned a scholarship to community college, and worked her way up to becoming a certified bookkeeper. For 15 years, she'd built a stable, modest life, until the economic downturn eliminated her position and forced her into service work to survive. No marriage, no children, no family beyond the grandmother who died 8 years ago. Emma Carter had built a solitary existence, trusting no one completely, depending on no one but herself. David realizes that her independence isn't just a character trait. It's armor built from the knowledge that the people who are supposed to protect you can disappear without warning. The information Margaret gathered also includes Emma's current address, her work schedule, her favorite coffee shop where she goes on her days off. David uses none of it. Instead, he sits with the knowledge of her struggles and his role in creating them. 3 weeks after their confrontation at the diner, David makes a decision that surprises even him. He calls his lawyer and makes arrangements to establish a scholarship fund for non-traditional students returning to college after career setbacks. He endows it with $10 million, ensuring it will help people like Emma for generations. He names it the Rose Walker Memorial Scholarship, using his sister's original name, not to claim credit, but to honor the girl who deserved better protection from the brother who loved her but failed her. The announcement appears in the local newspaper on a Thursday morning. Emma sees it while drinking coffee at the small cafe where she goes on her days off. The name stops her cold, and she reads the article 3 times before the full implication sinks in. Her phone rings that afternoon. The caller ID shows David Walker's office number, which she's looked up but never dialed. She answers on the 4th ring. "Emma?" David's voice is cautious, uncertain. "I saw the newspaper," Emma says quietly. "It's not meant to influence you or change anything between us," David says quickly. It's something I should have done years ago, something Rose would have wanted." Emma is quiet for a long moment. Why use her name? "Because she was the better person," David answers honestly. "The girl who cared about other people, who worried about the kids at school who didn't have lunch money. The scholarship is for her, not me." Emma feels tears threatening and fights them back. "It's a good thing you're doing." "It doesn't fix anything," David says. "I know that. It doesn't undo the choices I made or give you back the years you struggled alone, but maybe it prevents someone else from going through what you went through." "Maybe," Emma agrees softly. They sit in silence for a moment, connected by a phone line and separated by 25 years of hurt and disappointment. "Emma," David says finally, "I need you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. Not because of what it cost me, but because of what it cost you. You deserved better from your big brother."
Emma closes her eyes, feeling something inside her chest that's been frozen for decades begin to crack. "I know," she whispers. "I don't expect forgiveness," David continues. "I don't expect a relationship or a reunion or anything from you. I just needed you to know that I remember who you were, and I'm sorry I wasn't the brother you needed." Emma takes a shaky breath. "I remember who you were too," she says quietly. "Before everything fell apart, you were my hero. That's what made it hurt so much when you chose to leave." "I never stopped loving you," David says, his voice breaking slightly. "Even when I made the wrong choice, even when I was too proud to admit my mistake, I never stopped loving you." "I know," Emma repeats, and this time the words carry forgiveness instead of just acknowledgement. They talk for another hour, carefully sharing pieces of their separate lives, finding the places where love survived disappointment and time. It's not a reconciliation. Too much damage has been done for that. But it's a beginning, a tentative recognition that blood ties can endure even when they've been strained to the breaking point. When they finally hang up, Emma sits in her small apartment fingering the pendant that's never left her neck in 25 years. For the first time since she was 13 years old, she allows herself to remember being Rose Walker, the girl who had a big brother who called her brave. She's still Emma Carter, still independent, still cautious about trusting anyone completely. But maybe, just maybe, she doesn't have to carry the weight of being completely alone anymore. Sometimes forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past. It's about choosing to believe that people can change, that love can survive mistakes, and that it's never too late to honor the connection that made you family in the first place.